Good morning, everyone. Welcome to virtual Nashville Pagan Pride Day. I'm Reverend Mary Hawk, one of the coordinators. And now we're going to present Ed the Pagan, who's going to talk to us about PaganWorld and the Metaverse. And we do want to give our thanks to CEM Broadcasting and Ed, who's making our virtual Pagan Pride Day possible. Thank you so much, Ed.
No problem. I enjoy doing it. It's an interesting time we're living in because we're beginning this process of creating ideology out of the idea of the internet. So 2 years ago, I was beginning, people may not remember so much, but I was beginning a process of creating online the idea of a reality show. I've been on a reality show, and at that time, there was a lot of resistance. I was going to go around the country and just filming and asking festivals and other people to let me record them, as I have done for a number of years with my team, and then kind of found a way to make money for those festivals to continue on. That's a really hard thing to remember, that people once upon a time resisted the idea of being here. So I've been on Zoom for a very long time. Zoom is actually almost 10 years old, but we're going to go back up. So my name is Ed Hubbard. I'm also known as Ed the Pagan. I got that name through what we call traditional media during the 1990s, particularly 1995. WLSAM radio went to talk radio formats, and there was a show called Rokon and Gary Meyer. And they began this sort of talk show, and they would bring up all sorts of questions, and they would take phone calls. And in that process, anytime something pagan came up or Wiccan came up, I would call in and try, to give my 2 cents worth, oftentimes because the information was just awful. And so they would do so. But about the 3rd or 4th time I went into it, they says, "Oh, we got to stop just calling you Ed. You become, we need to identify you." And I go, "Oh, well, anything, how do you want to do that?" And then they go, "Well, hold on." And next thing I know, Gary Meyer comes on and goes, "And we're talking to Ed the Pagan." And we talked a little bit about Halloween, because that was about the time. And every time I would go on the show, they would call me Ed the Pagan. So in 1998, I got my a strong AOL account, and they had 10 letters. So I put the word Ed the Pagan at AOL.com. Okay, so it was just an identifier. It's a kind of a media creation. I began to do something that I would call the digital aura. And your digital aura is a space in which you interact with the internet. And it leaves information, it leaves an impression. It's an important distinction of that digital aura. Just like you have an electromagnetic aura and a spiritual aura, and you have this if you see infrared, you kind of give off this energy. If you go to Kirlian photography, you give off this energy. So do you give off an energy of information when you hit the internet. And so in 2000, I went to the Parliament in 1999, South Africa. And in 2000, I went to Crossroads 2000. It was a big festival, and it was my first festival after the Parliament. I was going to give a report about what happened at the Parliament. And Jerma Baker came onto the stage, and she goes, "Oh my, we're going to be introducing," and I'm just so happy to have Ed the Pagan. And I was like, "Oh my God," I turned 3 shades of red. I like, "Oh my God, this is going to get me in so much trouble with these people." And nobody even blinked, and they just clapped. And I gave my speech and everything else. And from that point on, my media presence, my interlocking idea of the internet became tied into this persona called Ed the Pagan. So my digital aura took on a name, Ed the Pagan, and everything that is attached to us goes through that digital aura. And that's a very important part of what is happening. So every piece of information, every data point, every energy you go through, every interface you go through leaves an impression. So this is a very important part. What does this have to do with PaganWorld? It's a crucial part, because we need to start figuring out how to digital, just as a individual leaves a digital aura, so does an entire community. They begin to create this sort of body of online information. And so your digital body, in this sense, just like your physical body in the internet, is all the places you can exert your aura and your influence, and every connection that you have, every password, every linkage is your capability, your influence, be it on AOL, be it your email, be it your various social media accounts, be it all the places that you are. everywhere you've ever shopped, everywhere you've ever traveled. I mean, the argument is over cookies. Everywhere you've ever traveled on the internet has been probably recorded at one place or another. Now, does that recording equal a value to be followed? Yes, yes, it does. And today we're having the battle over who has the right to monitor you and who doesn't. Let me go ahead and say everybody's already lost, because the very innate nature of how the internet works was to take something, copy it over and over again until the recipient receives it, the copy. What do I mean? We take your email, which was the first real system of going across. It made a copy to a server. That server then found out where the individual was through various markings, codings, the email, mail to, and then it delivered a copy to that individual, who can then either read it off the server or have it downloaded in the computer. That email still existed on that server. And early days, they would erase some of them after a while, but mostly they did not. And so you could have people who have emails. I mean, if I go to my AOL account, anything that I have not deleted still remains in my files. And probably somewhere in some archive, is the compressed data for cyber archaeologists to dig up someday. And so by doing so, by giving a name to my persona as the pagan, you can look me up anywhere. And I've used that now to do so. And my influence online has come into where I use it for Facebook, I use it for Twitter, I use it for email addresses, I have it at thepagan@gmail. Every time a new platform forms, I want to make sure that I'm on them. And you can do that too. So this is very important to realize. Any name that you're creating now has a value. And some people call it personal branding, they call it other things. My real name is Ed Hubbard. Edward August Hubbard is my birth name. But nobody really remembers that. And very rarely do people remember I'm Ed Hubbard. They just remember this name. PaganWorld is the next project I'm taking on. People don't know it, but I have taken on a lot of projects in the past that have had more and less success. I'm back to doing Pagans Tonight Radio. And next week I'm doing the Emerging Pagan Leadership, a really great series. And I've gotten back on 3-4 nights a week. And at one time, 13 years ago when we started, we were on 7 nights a week. We were emulating a radio station. Before that, in 2005, we began Magic TV, which now has over 4,000 videos and literally thousands of hours of recorded material that is available to the public through YouTube. But we started out independent of YouTube and moved into YouTube as one of the very first people in February 2006. And so we created a lot of video. And it became essentially a television. Next thing we would do, and this is a lot more fun, before that was Witch School. And Witch School is just that. It's a school for witches, in which we have now supplied almost 300,000 people with an education, 35 free lessons, paid lessons for $20 a month. We've added a virtual box. We have virtual candles. We have an entire community. And in 2001, that's what it was. We utilized different systems, including emails and a central website, chats and things like that to help teach people. And today we've produced over 4,000 active clergy through the system, and lots of people have been influenced by it. And I'm really grateful to that. Before that, in 1998, we began the Daily Spell, which was a daily newspaper, and the Daily Goddess News, which was a newspaper online. Made possible, we were first on one list, and then one list became e-groups, and e-groups were eventually bought up by Yahoo. And unfortunately, last year, that whole system went away. It's now exists in some deep archive for cyber archaeologists. Yes, think about that. We're beginning to build archives where cyber archaeologists 100 years from now are going to try to examine the beginnings of the internet and look at our community. And each one of these had a derivative of being able to create communication. Today, I'm using a word that is very rarely used, and I'm trying to push it forward. And it's called social broadcasting. PaganWorld is social broadcasting, and to control your digital aura, and to control the community's digital aura and how we look at the world as it is. It's an essential tool. And so what do I mean by this? So if everything we're putting out information-wise is available to people, both privately through various gatekeeping methods and through the systems, then people are going to learn. And our community has grown exponentially because of this. As you know, people know I've made predictions. 135 people, 135,000 people were seen in 2001. Before that, it was a little bit less. Today, it is believed 2 to 3 million people are Wiccans, and an equal amount of people are identify themselves in one form or another paganism just in the United States. So, Pagan World is the metaverse. Is that you're going to hear this term metaverse? Let's go ahead and talk with it. The metaverse is a persistent world that you can interact with, mostly used for games. World of Warcraft is a very good example. So is Call of Duty. Pokemon is probably, and I'm a Pokemon player. I'm at 35th level. I just made that yesterday. And I've been playing for a couple of months, in which the world gets overlaid with a gaming grid that you can then interact with on a local basis, i.e., in Pokemon, we have Pokestops at restaurants, at gyms, and at your comic book club probably has a Pokestop, and you go up there and you can get prizes from those things by spinning the Pokestop. And it's like a little blue aura, and then you are out there capturing Pokemon or digital creatures that have an existence, and they all are different. And then what do you do with those Poke creatures? Well, you collect them. A lot of people say collect them all. It's a big that. But then you take them and you go to a gym or to a battlefield and you battle them with other people. So I'm really kind of a digital dog fighter. I joke about it, but it's a digital creature, so it's more acceptable. And they have children playing and everything else. But there's an entire community built on the idea of capturing and battling with creatures. And it happens in real-time levels at real-time spaces and interlays over the world. They've got a Harry Potter game like this. They've got a number of games coming at. And they also have another place, and now Earth 2.0 is existing. Somebody's copied the entire world, and you can buy property on it. This idea of cyberspace is becoming greater. Cyberspace is the space that is the internet, actually. It's the space behind the internet. And I truly believe it's another dimension of our reality, just like a spirit dimension, just like the electromagnetic dimension. I mean, if you told people now a little bit more than 200 years ago that there were waves in the air, they go, of course there are. It's called ether. It's where the spirits live. We go, oh, no. There's electromagnetic waves or waves in which we can use our voices to transmit over long distances. Oh, that's witchcraft. That's magic. And I agree, it is witchcraft and magic, because anything that takes the very description by mages of what is magic, it is taking what is internally inside your mind and creating an existence for it outside your mind into the physical environment that you have, or into the environment you have. The internet is a place where we all talk about code. It is controlled by code. And then the word becomes real, just like this Zoom room. Then it basically, you move on to it, and then you kind of create your spaces in here. Today we're at Nashville Pagan Pride, right? And it's people from all over the country are seeing it. And not only that, but it's being socially broadcast. You can go to YouTube and it's being live there. It's going on Facebook. You can go to the Facebook Nashville Pagan Pride page, which you should do, and sign up. And then you can see it there. And then you can leave comments and everything else. And all of this composes something I call your digital aura. And the information you carry is your digital body. Isn't that interesting? And that, in fact, Zoom, which has become so popular, isn't a meeting chamber in cyberspace. It's actually teleportation to an astral, or in this case, cyberspace level, in which we can all interact. So where we get to all interact as if we were telepaths projecting our astral bodies. And now with AR, which is augmented reality, in which we're going to overlay, which Pokemon is, or it's going to become virtual, which is what Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, where you actually transpose yourself into another reality. Virtual reality is going to come in, and that is where you completely enter a new world with your full senses. And that's coming fast. Probably going to take a little longer than you know, but faster than you think. And then there is XR, which is like augmented reality, but it's informational. So a good example of this is that the oil well companies are using things called HoloLenses, which are like these big glasses. And instead of just going in there and fixing oil rigs, they spent a lot of money, is that you can put on your HoloLenses and they will look up different pieces. And then you have basically in the back of your mind and back of your ears, back of your senses, this sort of expert system. And you say, wow, these are all the parts. And you go, well, what's that part? What's this part? Here, what is that reading? Is that in line? And if it sees something wrong, it'll tell you how to fix it. HoloLenses will be eventually used to fix car engines. You could probably use to do surgery. So there's this aspect of it. There is surgeons now who are going into it. And so we did Starwood this year. We filmed parts of Starwood and we were able to project it out there. Nashville Pagan Pride is completely this way. So we're seeing this interfacing of the reality. So PaganWorld is now going to be the directory of the metaverse. It's you're on it today. So if you are going to, we've just begun building it. But beyond that, what is the pagan world? Well, the pagan world is a magical space in which we believe in the energies of the world and that we are Gaius by nature or Gaian or nature oriented, and that we want to connect with each other. So how do we connect with each other? Well, Witchfox was a great and terrific way of doing it. And now we're going to build one for a modern age. Witchfox cannot be recreated. It cannot be rebuilt. It was a unique artifact of its time. And in fact, the reason why it passed from this world is because it got outdated and the systems were starved because Google got better and people thought that was better. Facebook got better. Twitter got better. And so people could find each other. And then when Witchfox went away, they didn't realize it was so foundational to a community. It kind of made our community into silos. I'm hoping to find ways that you can find yourself and ways into it in there. So the metaverse is growing into that aspect. The last aspect of the what's going to happen in the metaverse is permanent and persistent structures. So if you have an Alexa or a Corona or any of these cyber speaking devices, do you realize what they really are? They're cyber spirits. I mean, they answer to their name. You have to summon them. You ask them to do things and that they will do it. And they're getting more and more complex so they can actually do physical, real things like, good morning, start my morning routine. And your coffee maker goes off. There's a great commercial for this. The shades open by automated systems. Lights come on. And then, it says, would you like your email? What's the most pertinent email? Well, these are the most pertinent emails that you identify. And eventually the AI systems behind it will figure that out for you. Then you will go on and go, okay, terrific. What is my schedule for the day? You won't even have to remember your schedule. It'll tell you. Now you're saying, oh, that's silly. I know you are. But I'm going to take a challenge for you. So I want you to take out, without looking at your telephone, how many phone numbers can you remember? That's right. Now, 20 years ago, before this sort of a rise of the cell phone, remember the first real smartphones, 2009, 2008, began to really kind of move in. People remembered phone numbers all over the place. It was actually considered quite a skill if you can remember a phone number. If you wanted to call your kids, if you wanted to call your mom, if you wanted to call your best friend, you didn't even think about it. You just picked up the phone and from your deep memory, you just go, there's the phone number. Could you, if you lost your cell phone today, call even the most closest people to you? And if the answer is yes, well, congratulations, you're doing well. And if you say no, well, that's because you've allowed your mind to free up some space. And now you've taken your external memory system and allowed them to remember the phone numbers. Why should you remember them when you can just push a button, which is faster, quicker, and everything else? So the metaverse is about all those activities. Imagine when you finally get to the point and for shopping and for building your businesses, there's amazing things. Like I'm thinking about a workshop called, Build Your Magical Business. And one of the ideas of it is that when we exchange fully over to the metaverse, you will say, wow, I'm running out of toothpaste. Alexa, toothpaste. And it will order it from Amazon, most likely, or whatever system you program, and it will deliver your toothpaste. You won't even need to remember the brand. It'll just send it to you, whatever is your common. Or, if you say milk, and then eventually it'll take away that and says, is your diet, and we'll send milk to you It'll take all care of all of that, and it'll be a cashless, smooth exchange. Just that fast. If you say pizza, it'll send you a pizza. Now, for people who are in that business, they better make sure you say, oh, I want a terrific pizza from my local pizza parlor. Otherwise, you're going to be at the mercy of the AIs as a business to kind of pick you, and you'll have to pay for that attention, because that is what drives all of this, where we spend our attention. So the soul of the metaverse, the soul of the internet, soul of cyberspace, your soul online is where you spend your attention. Where you spend your attention, and thank you for spending some of your attention with us today. I am really grateful that you're here at Nashville Pagan Pride, listening to us and being part of our online community and our physical community right now. But where you spend your attention then interacts with the internet. You then have your digital organ sitting out, and you have your interactions with it. And your interfaces to build your digital information, who you are and what information you have. PaganWorld Project is about taking that information, giving you control over it, and finding ways to interact with the larger pagan world, which has become amazing. And why do we want to act with them? Why do we want to give attention to our pagan world? Well, one, your faith. Do you believe in what you're talking about? Do you believe in what your reality is? Do you really want to interact with it? Two, it gives us more resources so we can do larger scale projects. I mean, before COVID, it was very difficult to find out information about a festival. Now we, through Magic TV, have been, interviewing people. So you got some of the festivals through a filter of interviewers and other things like that. Now you're getting live broadcasts. Pretty soon you'll be able to attend them at a distance in full, when you're wearing your VR gear, in full 3D senses. Did you know in Japan, they've already begun experimenting with robots, which you can then use your VR system to go into live convention, and the robot will walk around, shake hands, hand out business cards, and talk to the other participants, whether they're another robot or a human being. Yeah. Some of you are going to say, oh, that's creepy. And some of you are going to go, well, that's kind of fun. I would do that. So it takes away the ability to do it. So we are now living in a telepathic space created through intelligent electricity that allows us to teleport ourselves or fly to anywhere we want. And we can take actual physical possession of bodies, robotic bodies, to do so. Let's take it one step further. I believe in the rider monk. So you may even be able to hire people who basically are set up with cameras, earphones, microphones, even speakers on them, and they will walk around at people's direction. You can hire them like a taxi cab, and you ride on them, you ride on their shoulders, you ride on their auras, you ride on their physical spaces, and then they can participate and do things that you become viscerally involved with. So a good example of this is that you could take a rider monk. I'm calling them rider monks because it's an individual. They have to be very focused on what they're doing, because they're going to be listened to, and they could take you on a ski ride. Now they can film it and you can put it in VR, or they can take it and be in actuality that you are participating. You have your VR cameras on, you have all of that, and your mind will feel like it's there, and you will ride down there. Is it? And you can ride down and ski with them. I mean, in live, synchronized time. Or you can ride with a rock star. So you can walk with a rock star who's performing live, and they're performing, and you're there with them, seeing it from their point of view. Now you can do this in recorded VR, or actually be there with them and see it from the rock star point of view, or anyone in the concert's point of view. You can see it from any angle. So our complexity of our experiences are going to grow. Isn't that amazing? It is to me. So we'll be able to have these sort of complex amazings. And what do they call that in the Voodoo and Hoodoo communities? They call it having a rider. We already have the spirits riding with them and able to deal with them. And so either if it's mechanical about it, the Avatar Project, which is paying $10 million to make it possible to do so, to create a robotic body that can be possessed and utilized for emergency purposes, for dangerous purposes and such, that you can go ahead and do it. Or the spiritual level, where they come and they ride with you into ecstatic dancing and things like that. So you could have a spirit experience through the system. Cyberspace is about to open up the magical space in a major way. So I'm open to any questions that you guys have, and go with that. And people mention I love to play. Yes, Pokemon's a lot of fun. I do mine. I got caught in it a couple of months ago with my grandchildren and everything else. I'm open. We're still a bit recording if you want to. So how to become involved with Pagan World Project? You go to the site that's one of the sites that's hosting this, Pagan World. And it's paganworld.ning.com. It's going to be paganworld.co in a couple of days, and a lot of other names. You sign up, and then you can participate as we build out the site. It'll allow for directories, social broadcasting, which is a major thing. What do I mean by social broadcasting? So one of the hardest things in the world is where there exists a scarcity, there is the idea of gatekeepers. For the longest time, pagans really wanted to develop and wanted to develop the idea of being in the press. And gatekeeping, the original word for gatekeeping was about accessing the household, about who was making decisions in it. And that was a natural thing for advertisers to figure out, that the housewife was the actual person making decisions about food as that came along. Eventually became to realize that you only have so much space in the day per radio and newspapers and television shows. And so people had to figure out what news that you wanted to put in there, what commentary did you want to put in there, what was important to people in there, and everything else got discarded. And so, and the same was true for record companies. You had to find a record company in order to record you and press the records and sell you on the radio and do all of that stuff, because of the scarcity of the ability to broadcast. Because it was scarce, and then a lot of pagans worked really hard. And I was actually, this is one of my early claims to fame, I was very good at getting newspaper stories. I've gotten projects I've worked on have been on the Chicago front page of the Chicago Tribune a number of times, the Chicago Sun-Times. And I have actually been interviewed or have had stories created in all 6 continents at one time. And so that was a very important part, because it was scarce. It was and so if you can get there, you felt like you achieved something about being involved with the world. And it was so scarce that in 1993, I learned that you can bypass the gatekeeper a little bit by buying your own radio station, radio time. And I used to buy radio time at $75 an hour for Psychic Chicago Radio. The Witching Hour came out of a number of pieces. I was actually, in one of the books, they mentioned me as a major, pioneer, which is kind of a weird thing to call me, but I accept that. I've come to accept that. And we did telepathic radio. We did IRC radio chat, where we did radio through an IRC internet relay, which they had actually sound, which was actually a big bonus. And then from there, I've learned that in order to have a free press, you have to own a press. If you don't own your press, you don't get it. You just don't have it. And so I focused largely on getting pagans the press. So I've been to Parliament of World Religions. I've done recordings there. I've done all sorts of recordings. And now social broadcasting means I bypass the television networks, and it's a matter of our talent. And every one of you has this capability of doing it for free. What would costed millions of dollars. This $1,000 cell phone does as much for me as a $175,000 truck. Yes, I tried to buy a camera truck in order to be able to record better materials and take control of it. And when I went to go buy a used one from WGN that were selling off their used trucks, they said, oh no, it's $175,000 with all the equipment in there and everything else. My cell phone now duplicates all of that. And my distribution ability is near zero. And you can do this. And not only that, so you can produce products. There's so many things in it. So the last concept of the metaverse is that everything's going to become near zero distribution, near zero friction to do so. And that's a big thing. You can go directly to your audience. So in Pagan World, we're going to try connecting the individuals who want to find information, either find a group, a coven, a store, a speaker, a writer, doing a podcast, listening to a podcast, which are now hundreds of, and bring them together into one space that overlies all the other spaces so you can find it easier, quicker, faster. And over time, that space will take on more and more of a cyber physicality, blockchain, Bitcoin. Imagine having a pagan coin. We could really change our economy when we create the pagan coin.
Ed, I think we have a question.
Oh, good.
Terry, you have your hand up.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted and I was trying to get myself unmuted.
Well, that'll become more automatic in time, but what's the question, if I may ask?
Yes. Well, like, let me kind of explain. I am kind of in the process of kind of having a tech awakening because, you know, I've been a pagan since like my early teens, and I was taught during that time that, you know, you shouldn't record like ritual and things like that, that it messes with the energy flow. And I've, you know, recently just, you know, with the pandemic, I've kind of had this awakening, like, I don't feel like that happens. So I've been reaching out to my community more, and what would be the best way to get it out there that I am doing these recordings where that people can view them over and over again if they wanted to, because a lot of what I'm doing is basic foundation classwork, because there are a lot of new people that are coming in right now that I really have a desire to give proper information to.
Okay. So do you have a name for your group?
Yes, it's called Coffee County, Tennessee Pagan Network.
Okay. First thing you do is go to Gmail and get that name. Get whatever name you want to and go to Gmail.
Yes.
Okay. We can say something, Mary? Oh. Go to Gmail and get your main name. Gmail is a foundational piece for building your presence. Because then you get YouTube, you get a Google Drive, you get a lot of free services out there. Then you get your Twitter account if you want to, and you can go out and get because then you can go back and use that as your main, you know, you use that Gmail to get yourself a Twitter account. If you already have a Facebook account, you get your Facebook page. There's also other services. Like that. Clubhouse has become really super popular. TikTok is super popular and everything else. And ultimately what you do is then get yourself a Zoom account. You can get yourself, and everything I'm telling you right now is free. Okay. And then you get your Zoom account, which you can either get a free account, which allows you 40 minutes at a meeting, or you can get yourself a paid account for $15. And this is the easiest way and to actually record your films through. There's also Restream. There's other services that are available for casting it. If you want to spend some money, we spend an extra $50 a month for something called Caster that integrate. And if anyone wants to know how we're broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube Live right now, you can do so. But you don't have to do that. So the easiest, fast way is to get yourself a Gmail account and a YouTube account, because the Gmail is tied into your YouTube account, and then it's recorded directly live to YouTube if you want to do it live, or you record it and upload it. But you can do now YouTube Live. If you want it to be fancier, then you can do Zoom rooms, record it, and then upload it because people want privacy, or they want to do it that system.
Yeah, because there is an issue, because some people coming in don't want to tell their family about what they're doing quite yet. They're not prepared, so they're trying to have some privacy about it.
Right, then they should have no, and if you have to protect a secret, there is no privacy on the internet. They should not be there. Right. If you do not want to be anywhere recorded, you should never, ever even mention for a moment your paganism. If you mention you're a pagan on Facebook, it automatically goes to the algorithm and will start feeding you into there. Remember, the entire purpose of the internet is to record everything and then broadcast it, project it into places where people want it. So, right. So you cannot do, so if you cannot do a recording of a ritual with people on camera that don't want to be, who don't want this out. It's impossible.
Right,
It's
right.
It's ridiculous. It's just it's not a sane idea. Now they could be behind the camera where they're not being filmed, but they're not
Right.
they're not participating. And you go, well, I just will have my voice on it. There's voice recognition filters now. You can tell my voice. And my voice, I've been found out, is very distinctive. You can really identify my voice because I have a lot of quirks in how I speak. So if you were to say, oh, who's that voice? They take it and run it against a database. Oh, that's Ed the Pagan. Why? Well, you got all these different clicks and sounds into it. So literally, if you do not want to be on the internet or known or outed, they can never, ever, ever mention their paganism in the world. And so many people would disregard that. So you can't join PaganWorld. You cannot do a Facebook page. You cannot do a podcast. You can't do any of it. And truthfully is you can't even tap into the data and watch it because somebody's recording the fact that you're watching things. Okay.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, sure. If you go to YouTube, every YouTube video you record is locked into your name. They know everything you've ever watched. Every click of Facebook.
I don't have a problem with it. Like, I'll tell people flat out that I'm pagan, and I tell people all day long. It doesn't bother me at all. But I do have a few people within my group that are secretive about it because they don't want their parents to find out or whatever.
Right. So there's only a handful of systems that actually disappear at the end of it. A Zoom room without a recording kind of disappears. It's not recorded. It may exist in some deep inside their system, but they delete that space because they don't want it, because they do want to free it up. I mean, you can do so, but no, everything in every space you go into, that's what the battle over cookies are. They aren't because they want and there are cookie monsters or things that eat up cookies. So even if depending on how little you want to be known, you can everything you touch. Remember I talked earlier about digital auras? Every YouTube video you've ever watched, they've gone after people on it. If you go to a library and those records, they have records of you using your library card, you can get that data. They've done it for Supreme Court justices. Every piece of data that you have created, every credit card transaction is recorded forever. You can go back and find it.
It's impossible to be a anonymous person nowadays. It's like, because everything is kind of recorded. I understand that.
And so, and if you're in the city of Chicago, you're recorded on any given day. If you're in downtown Chicago, it's 135 cameras. If you are in downtown London, you're recorded by 560 different cameras on a daily basis. There's literally over 2 million cameras in London. It's the most surveilled city in the world. If you're in China, if you're any places, yes, you're being recorded. We now live inside a metaverse. This is, so far it's been for security theater. We've seen it, but more and more it's becoming a component of it. A tarot store I want to build in Salem is because it's Salem and there's so many cool people. I want to be able to have my clerks say, I want to see a tarot deck. And they go, and you go on and you go, hi, can I see that tarot deck? And they come out and they put their gloves on because some of the decks I want to have are truly expensive. They can put out a little cloth and they can show you the deck live. There's a thing called Shopping Live Network that is making $60 billion in China, where there are people on basically WeChat, which is kind of the Facebook equivalent, selling product. We now see people selling product through Facebook Live. There is really no way you can escape this. You hear people going off grid. Well, as of August, that's even impossible because the satellite system has now totally encompassed the world. And so now they can take a photograph anywhere that they want to. And the internet can be received anywhere they want to. Even your car sends off signals now, are starting to send off signals because they have computer chips. So the idea of privacy, and I just wrote about this too. I just saw an article about this, is a privilege that has only existed for a very small period of time. And it is a privilege that doesn't really exist. That's it. On the internet. So sorry to go on that rant, but then you just take your system and put it into place. You know what I'm saying? You just go ahead and put it into your place. Once you get past that ideology and are willing to embrace it, then you have a lot of ways of doing ritual. And how do you let them know? you do an event on Facebook, you reach out to people. One of the favorite ways I do things, I get my radio shows, and I'm hoping for a really cool one tomorrow. You DM them, you messenger them, you reach out to them, they say, do you want to participate? Vessels, and then you just do it. But the fastest way, cheapest way, quickest way, Gmail account that ties into a YouTube account. Then there are more systems, then you get to Zoom and other ways of doing it, and then you build out from there. You want to know more, just DM me and I'll be able to help you go through that process. Does that answer the question? I guess so.
I'm sorry. Yes, it did. I had muted it because I had stuff going on in the background and I didn't want it to interfere.
Right. And that's something you'll have to watch for. So control of space is going to be very important, where you record. So yeah, but yeah, if you go ahead and DM me any number of different ways, or email me at edthepagan@gmail.com when you're ready to start, and I'll be able to take you through that process of getting it up and running.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And with that, folks, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording. And yes, I'm sure I want to stop the recording to the class.